All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. So tonight we're going to be talking about the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I know they finished the season 8-9, and anytime you finish below 500, you can view it as a failure. You can view it as a non-success, but we're flipping the script. And any Raiders fan watching this video knows exactly what I'm talking about. With all the turmoil and all the dysfunctionality that the Raiders organization went through the first half of the season, more specifically, the last 18 months or like 18 of the last 24 months that the Raiders have been through, we're looking at a massive success. The Raiders, for the first time in quite some time, I'm actually genuinely excited about this team. I'm excited about the roster. I'm excited about the culture. And when we take a look deeper into things, Antonio Pierce, with a completely broken locker room and just a super weird quarterback room, completely flipped the script, completely flipped the narrative. Now, I believe the Tennessee Titans earlier today announced that they wanted him potentially as the head coach for the Raiders. Now, the Raiders organization, the Raiders' current status, their current state isn't perfect. We need to figure out a couple of things. First and foremost, it's going to be the head coaching position. Secondly, it's going to be the quarterback position. And then, I could use a right tackle. I could use another defensive back. I could use another edge rusher. There are some things that this team can and will improve on this upcoming offseason. But what Antonio Pierce has implemented in the locker room and on the field, it should not be overlooked. And Raiders fans are not overlooking it. Their defense finished 9th in total this season. But in the second half of the year with Antonio Pierce, they were actually one of the best defenses in the National Football League. So before we get into tonight's video, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content, along with a couple of Raiders videos every single week. Raiders fans, if we could try and get this video to 250 likes, it would mean the absolute world to me. So I saw this tweet that perfectly summed everything up, and it was from Raiders AQ. Antonio Pierce did these things. He accomplished these stats. He went to Arrowhead Stadium and beat Patrick Mahomes on Christmas Day. My Raiders fans watching this video right now know exactly how pivotal and how much of a turning point that victory actually was. The first time they faced off against Kansas City, Aiden Okano had a really solid game. The Las Vegas Raiders had a really solid game, but it was more so in the first half. And then in the second half, Kansas City kind of did Kansas City things. That was not the case on Christmas Day. And while it wasn't pretty, it wasn't sexy, Aiden Okano didn't have a completion outside of the first quarter, they won the football game. And they took down the defending Super Bowl champions. They followed it up the rest of the season going 5-4 with an inherited team. That's what Antonio Pierce did. They beat the Los Angeles Chargers and broke franchise records, scoring 63 points against the Chargers with Aiden Okano. Aiden Okano was a 4th-round rookie quarterback. And Antonio Pierce went 5-4 with Aiden Okano. They went 3-1 in Antonio Pierce's reign against divisional rival. So they signed Jack Jones, who absolutely lit it up in the last month of the season. But most importantly, and finally, something we haven't seen from the Raiders in at least 2 seasons, they brought the locker room back together. They brought the fans back together, and they completely flipped the script. The Las Vegas Raiders are back, folks, and all they really need here is a quarterback, a head coach, and we all have our own opinions on both of those. I personally think Antonio Pierce deserves the job. I do see Mike Vrabel rumors. I think Bill Belichick is certainly not the man for the job. I think Mike Vrabel is more of a sideways, maybe slightly above move. Antonio Pierce is generating interest. The Tennessee Titans have interest in him, which once again, vice versa, doesn't really make much sense to me. I don't know why on earth they would ever fire Mike Vrabel, but it is what it is. That's what they decided to do. I do know that the New York Giants have interest in bringing Antonio Pierce back to their organization as the defensive coordinator. But at the end of the day, I do think unless the Raiders some way, somehow got Jim Harbaugh, who I don't know if he's going to the NFL. I don't know if he's trying to build a dynasty in Michigan. I don't really know what's going on. We've heard the reports from the owners, from the Raiders organization, that they did have interest bringing him in before Josh McDaniels was officially named the head coach. To me, it's either Jim Harbaugh or Antonio Pierce. And I would actually lean more towards Antonio Pierce unless Jim Harbaugh was actually coming in to accept the job. The Raiders did a really good job. Once again, their second half of the season was completely with a fourth round quarterback in Aiden Okano. Now, I want to give Aiden the benefit of the doubt because, especially when you pair in, so here is statistics: 2,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I feel like we didn't really see the touchdowns come until the end of the season. It was mainly Aiden would have a game where he would have, 250 passing yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, all the way until the last month of the season. I was not personally blown away with Aiden Okano. If he was the starting quarterback next season, and they're not bringing in Baker Mayfield, but if you bring in a guy like Baker Mayfield to compete with Aiden Okano, I understand that. If you bring in another second or third round QB, I understand that. What I want the Raiders to do, I want them to make a big time splash. I want Antonio Pierce back as the head coach. And I think Aiden Okano, even though when you pair up his, if he had started all 17 games this season, the stats are actually better than Derek Carr in his rookie year. I don't think he's the man for the job, but I think he's a great backup quarterback. And what I would do if I was the Raiders is I would actually trade up. The Raiders have a lot of decisions that they need to make in the offseason here, and I would imagine they don't really know exactly what those decisions are going to be until we start seeing some dominoes fall into place here. For example, Zamir White, I think, should be the starting running back next season. In his final game against Denver, 22 rushes, 112 yards. He single-handedly won the game against the Kansas City Chiefs, where he ran for 145 yards. The week before against the Chargers, he had 69 yards and a touchdown. Against Indy, he had 71 rushing yards. I would cut Josh Jacobs loose, and I would draft another this kind of dual threat athletic running back to pair with Zamir White. And then we have questions about Hunter Renfrow. I wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders decided to trade Devontae Adams. The point stands as this: they're quarterback away. And offensively, I loved what I saw. Yes, I could use another right tackle. I could probably use a starting quarterback. But at the end of the day, the Raiders' offense still looks very solid on paper. And most importantly, the Raiders' defense is back to being the Raiders' defense, which we really have not seen in the last 20 or so years. So I think the Raiders are in a really good spot, but I want you guys, especially my Raiders fans, to let me know what you're doing down below. Are you drafting a new QB? Who's your head coach for next season? Let me know. Have a great rest of your night, and we will see you next time.